Another episode of the PFF NFL show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here, breaking down Daniel Jeremiah's brand new big board, a full top 50 prospects for the 2025 NFL draft. Daniel Jeremiah, one of the top draft analysts in the business, is available at NFL.com if you want to check it out. Dalton, there's a lot of guys on this list that a little bit higher than I think I've seen some on some big boards. So it's going to be really interesting to kind of break it down from one of the best draft analysts in the game.
Absolutely. It's always good to get a different perspective of where, positional value might matter, what type of talent you're looking for might matter, what type of traits, right? And I think everybody's got different opinions, but it feels like we're starting to get a clearer picture of maybe some of the tiers, at least, that these players are in, if not the order, because the order, I think, is always debated by every draft analyst in existence. So should be fun to go through it and break it down.
So while this isn't a PFF big board that we're breaking down, of course, ours is available at PFF.com if you want to check it out from the great Trevor Sikkema. We are going to be using a lot of PFF stats to kind of contextualize a lot of these top prospects in the draft on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. And all those stats are available to you guys with a PFF Plus subscription at subscribe.pff.com for all stats for the NFL players, for college football players as well. The PFF 2025 NFL Mock Draft Simulator is available to you guys. You can trade players and trade picks and do a full 7-round mock draft for your favorite team or every team in the NFL if you choose to do so. And also the best betting tools on the planet. With the Super Bowl coming up, obviously, in a couple days, you're going to want to get a lot of prop bets in, I'm sure, and our betting tools should help you out and making sure you win as many of those bets as possible on Super Bowl Sunday. Before we start, we've got to talk about our sponsor of the show, and that is Fabric by Gerber Life. What does your child's future success look like to you? A job they're passionate about, traveling around the world, or just being happy and comfortable? Whatever their journey, you can help make it easier to achieve with a kid's investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. By making a contribution to your child's future today, you can help give them the means to pursue their dreams, big and small. Fabric by Gerber Life is designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. It's all online. Manage your child's investment account right from your phone, and you start with just $20 with no contribution limits, tax advantages, and your funds are SIPC insured up to $500,000. Plus, no commission fees and just a low, flat monthly maintenance fee. Unique gifting links can be shared with family and friends, so instead of more stuff, they can help grow your child's investments for their future instead. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, Dalton, let's start off with the top 10 of the Daniel Jeremiah big board. At number 1 is edge defender Abdul Carter from Penn State. Number 2, corner/wide receiver Travis Hunter from Colorado. Number 3, Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. Number 4, defensive tackle Mason Graham from Michigan. Number 5, tight end Tyler Warren from Penn State. Number 6, linebacker who's probably going to play edge in the NFL, Jalen Walker from Georgia. Number 7, Colston Loveland, the tight end from Michigan. Number 8, Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU. Number 9, Jahdae Barron, the cornerback from Texas. And number 10, the first quarterback on the board, Cam Ward from Miami. What do you think about the top 10 there?
So it feels like those first 4 guys in some order, Carter, Hunter, Jeanty, Graham, there's starting to be a consensus that those are the 4 best football players in this draft. We know quarterbacks because of the positional value of it, and every team needs a franchise quarterback. Quarterbacks may go ahead of 1 or 2 of those guys, possibly in the top 3 picks. We could see Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders go, but it's starting to feel like these are the 4 players that scouts are narrowing in on as the 4 elite players. Carter as an elite edge defender who's had a fantastic season in his first season as a full-time edge defender at Penn State. Hunter as a two-way superstar that we've really never seen before. Jeanty as maybe the best college back that we've seen in a long time in the backfield. And Mason Graham, just a dominant interior presence. I think maybe the safest pick in the draft and high potential, I think, to be at least a top 10 defensive tackle in the NFL.
So, okay, let's take out positional value here, which obviously is very important in the NFL draft. But I agree with you. Those are the top 4 players in this draft. How would you order them? I think my order would probably be Travis Hunter. If you're just taking out positional value, just who's the best football players, who's the best at what they do. Number 1 for me, Travis Hunter. Number 2 for me is probably Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. And number 3 for me is probably Mason Graham, and then number 4 is probably Abdul Carter. How would you order that?
I have Jeanty and Graham flipped. I have Graham too because I think he's just so safe. I think he's going to be at least a top 10 defensive tackle in the league. I just run defense, pass rush. We've seen him play off the edge sometimes, even in a way that Chris Jones has for Kansas City. I think he's just an incredible football player who translates to all 32 teams. Then Jeanty 3, and I have Carter 4. And look, again, they're very, very close, but I think Hunter, Graham, and Jeanty are just, I think they're the 3 best. I think they're just fantastic football players, all of them. And then with Hunter, it depends on your opinion of what the plan is for him. And Carter, look, if you feel like he's the generational Myles Garrett, Von Miller type of pass rusher, I get it. I absolutely get where that's coming from, but it's starting to get pretty clear that these are the top 4. I would have Jeanty 3 and Graham 2 and just flip from what you have.
So Trevor Sikkema actually has a little bit of a different order in his big board. Again, available at PFF.com. Travis Hunter number 1, Abdul Carter number 2, and then Tedero McMillan is number 3 on his big board with Mason Graham number 4 and Ashton Jeanty number 5.
I have Tet at 5. So
yes, makes sense.
I get it. If you're thinking about, this guy could at 6'5" have a Mike Evans level of impact on an offense, I have McMillan at 5. He's the very next guy that I would have here. I don't see in DJ's top 10, but I mean, there's not a whole lot to dislike about McMillan's game.
No, he's a little bit lower than I think he should be on DJ's rankings, but he is certainly a phenomenal football player. So you have Tet McMillan at 5. I also think I have Tet McMillan at 5. Anything else in that top 10 that stands out to you from the 6 through 10 range?
Well, I'll tell you what, 2 tight ends in the top 7. How about that?
Yeah.
I think Tyler Warren, it's very much justified. When I was looking at it again, I think he's one of the 7 or 8 best players in this draft. I'm surprised Colston Loveland is this high. I think Warren definitely has him beat as a blocker. He's got a little more toughness, a little more after the catch ability to him. And look, Loveland's a really good prospect. I think he's a first round prospect. I think he's a guy I would expect to go no earlier than probably the late teens or somewhere in the 20s. I think there's some really good fits for him in that range. I don't know that he's the 7th best player in this class. He does remind me a bit when I watch him of maybe a TJ Hawkinson, who obviously has been a top 10 tight end in the league for a while. I think Colston Loveland's really good. Not sure I'd have him as the 7th best player, but I could see him somewhere in the top 20, probably a little bit later.
I agree with that. The other one that stands out to me is Jalen Walker, number 6 overall. A lot higher than I personally would have him.
It takes some projection with him.
I think just other edges, and what's a loaded edge class, I think there's guys like James Pierce Jr. I'd much rather have than Jalen Walker. Mike Green, another guy I'd rather have than Jalen Walker. I mean, Nick Skorton even, I'd rather have Jalen Walker. There's I'm a little bit lower on Jalen Walker. I think he's more of like a second-round caliber player than a first-round caliber player, and certainly not a top 10 player on my big board. Jack Sawyer, I'm a big fan of as well. I just think there's a lot of projection for Jalen Walker right there, and I think people are just kind of thinking, just be Abdul Carter, just immediately move to edge and be incredible. I think Abdul Carter's like a 1 of 1 in a lot of ways like that.
And Carter, you're talking about you have to be a special player like an Abdul Carter, a Micah Parsons, or maybe you just have to go to Penn State, and that's how that works. But no, Walker, I think the big difference between Carter and Walker, because people go, well, Carter did it. Well, we saw Carter do it for a whole year already at Penn State. We had these same questions about Abdul Carter coming into this year, and we were projecting him maybe in the 20s, maybe late first, early second. And then he went out and dominated an edge rusher all season at Penn State, and we go, okay, that's a top 10 guy, right? You have to see it, right? And with Georgia, yes, the pass rush win rates are very good, and it was the same way that as when Carter was playing linebacker, but you can't just assume they're the same player, and you mentioned it, to put him ahead of proven edge rushers like Pierce and even a Mike Green from Marshall, it's risky. It takes a lot of projection in the same way that we were projecting Carter. It worked with Carter. We have to see it with Walker now on an NFL level, because obviously he's going to get drafted somewhere very highly. So I think it's a risky pick. I get the idea, but if you really think he's the second best edge defender, but we've seen other guys do it more.
I mean, especially when the next edge rusher on his list is number 16 overall, Michael Williams. Even that, that's a lot of projection as well. And then James Pierce is number 20. Like the fact that there's 14 spots separated into him, I don't know. That's a little bit too much for me. But let's get to the 11 through 20 on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. Number 11, QB2 in the draft for him, Shedeur Sanders from Colorado. Number 12, Will Johnson, the quarterback from Michigan. Number 13, Jahad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama. 14, another Alabama player, and Tyler Booker, the guard. Number 15, Tedero McMillan, the wide receiver from Arizona. 16, Michael Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia. 17, Armand Membu, the offensive lineman from Missouri. 18, Kenneth Grant, D tackle from Michigan. 19, Calvin Banks Jr. from the offensive tackle from Texas. And then 20, James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. What stands out to you in the 11 through 20 range?
So let's talk about quarterbacks for a second, because, obviously people are going to have their preference between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. And one of the things I've been trying to emphasize with them, one spot apart from each other, with Ward at 10 and Shedeur at 11, that's how close it is, right?
Yes.
They're probably of equal talent and just slightly different types of talent. When you think about Cam Ward being a little more of a mobile gunslinger, I think there's even a little bit of Caleb Williams to him at times, and sometimes he can have that casual demeanor in the pocket. He's got a ton of swagger. And Shedeur, I think, for as much as people think about the improvising behind Colorado's offensive line and some of the things he can do on the move, he wants to be a rhythm pocket passer, right? I think he's very accurate. Does he have an A-plus arm like Josh Allen or Justin Herbert? Absolutely not. We know this, right? But I think it's his ability from the neck up to read defenses and to understand what he needs to do with the football. That's how close these two guys are. When you talk about maybe one or the other going at number 1 overall, just depends on your preference, right? I mean, and we can try to read coaches and scouts' minds all day long, but they're not going to know. I think even the Tennessee Titans at the very top are not going to know which one they prefer until they go through all the interviews and the combine and the entire process. So I think what you have is two guys who are very close, and it's going to come down to your preference on which one you like better.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having them one spot apart from each other, because I'm with you. I think it's truly a coin flip between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Ward, obviously, the higher ceiling. Sanders has a higher floor, in my opinion. So I think that I do like that from Daniel Jeremiah, having them that close to each other. And then some interesting ones on in the top 20, guys like Tyler Booker in the top 15, Jahad Campbell, we saw in Mel Kiper's mock draft, went in the first round as well. So some guys that, are kind of moving up boards, seems like, for a lot of top draft analysts, and they are not Jeremiah's as well.
Armand Membu as well, sitting there 2 spots ahead of Kelvin Banks. I would not have that. I would have Banks ahead of both Membu and Booker. I think he's in the conversation with Will Campbell at 9, Campbell's at 8 to be that high up. I think as a pure tackle, I think you could easily argue Kelvin Banks is the best tackle in this class. I think Campbell gives you options when it comes to moving inside or outside, and I think a lot of these guys, it is going to come down to scheme fit. I'm surprised here that at the very least Membu is ahead of Banks. I would not have that. I think Membu is a little more scheme dependent. Obviously, there's always the argument about right tackle versus left tackle. I don't even mind that part, but I think he's a little more scheme dependent. I think Banks is a little bit more athletic, and his pass protection is just fantastic. And either one of them is going to want to be in one of those zone schemes like San Francisco or Miami, but I would have Banks ahead of Membu for sure.
I absolutely would too. I think Banks is, for me, the number 1 offensive lineman in the draft, and I like Will Campbell a lot, but I was pretty sure of it when I was watching the tape on both of them. I think Calvin Banks Jr. is a phenomenal talent. I probably would have him as a top 10 prospect overall in this NFL draft. So, I agree with you there. And Pierce at number 20 overall, I think you and I both agree it's a top 10 player in this draft as well. So probably should be a little bit higher on that big board for Daniel Jeremiah. But we'll get to the rest of the top 50 in just a second. We talk about the next sponsor of the show, and that is Pick 6 by DraftKings. Have you played it yet from DraftKings? What are you waiting for? You better get on it. The Super Bowl is here, and time is running out. As the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL, DraftKings does fantasy sports like nobody else. Play for better payouts on Pick 6. It's super easy to get started. Select 2 more players. Choose if they'll have more or less of a stat like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, and more. Pick 6 is available in most states, including Missouri, California, Texas, Georgia, and more. And DraftKings is making it even sweeter for first-timers. New Pick 6 customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Super Bowl coming up this weekend. Obviously, Travis Kelce has been the most trusted target of Patrick Mahomes lately. I'd probably take the over for Travis Kelce's receiving yards. I think Hollywood Brown also going to have a huge game. They got to get rid of the football quickly. Hollywood Brown has been kind of their underneath guy they've been targeting a lot over the last few weeks. I think Hollywood Brown and Travis Kelce, the over for both of them, makes a lot of sense to me at least. Win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code PFF. That's code PFF for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or Visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick Six credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos. All right, let's get to 21 through 30 now on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. Number 21 overall, another guy's moving up a lot of boards, Dalton. Nick Emanwari, the safety from South Carolina. Number 22, Derek Harmon, the defensive tackle from Oregon. 23, Mike Green, the Marshall edge rusher. 24, Matthew Golden, the wide receiver from Texas. 25, another receiver, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. 26, Walter Nolan, the D tackle from Ole Miss. Number 27, Shamar Stewart, the Texas A&M edge rusher. Number 28, Donovan Ezaraku, the Boston College edge rusher. Number 29, Amarian Hampton, running back from North Carolina. And number 30, Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. A lot of guys that showed out at the Senior Bowl, especially at edge rusher here from the 21 to 30 range.
I was going to say, you get this many defensive linemen in this range and how talented these guys are. Harmon was an excellent pass rusher for Oregon this year. Mike Green, we saw him down in Mobile. He was just fantastic. Highest graded edge defender in the country this year down at Marshall, and proved he can do it against top competition at the Senior Bowl. Even decided to take the third practice in the game off. He was so good in the first two practices. Walter Nolan was fantastic all week. Shamar Stewart, in a similar manner to Green, arguably the best player down in Mobile. If he can continue to develop as a pass rusher at 6'5" and 280 and as good a run defender as he is, that's a super high ceiling that Stewart has, and at 27 may even be too low for what we saw at the Senior Bowl, but a fantastic football player. Donovan Ezaraku, too, from Boston College, a little bit different from some of those other guys, but he's got a plan mentally. It's fantastic when it comes to coming up with a pass rush plan. I think you have a lot of high ceiling defensive linemen, and again, it shows. I felt that defensive line was the best position unit in this class, and I think the fact that you're seeing guys of that caliber of talent into the mid to late 20s is just incredible. It's a great year to need a defensive lineman.
It is loaded defensive line-wise, whether it be D-tackle or edge rusher, and the Senior Bowl showed that with all the guys showing out at the Senior Bowl. And I believe this big board even came out before the Senior Bowl. So Daniel Jeremiah shouting out these guys before they even dominated down in Mobile. Obviously, Mike Green was phenomenal, like you said, and at the Senior Bowl. Walter Nolan was unblockable as well. Shamar Stewart was the best player at the Senior Bowl with a 93.8 grade. And Donovan Ezaraku, I was really impressed by him as well. I think he's kind of a sneaky first-round caliber player, and Daniel Jeremiah has him in his top 32 as well. So he's a guy that I think has such a high floor. Like you said, his pass rush plan might be the best in the entire draft, honestly. He's phenomenal.
I would not be shocked if we hear that several teams have Green, Nolan, and Stewart in the top 15 of their board. That's how good they were. All three were at the Senior Bowl, and really that's how good all three of them were during the season. It would not be shocking at all to see any of them go top 15.
No, not at all. All right, let's get through number 31 through 40 now. Donovan Jackson, the guard from Ohio State, following his teammate Josh Simmons on the offensive line, who's number 30 overall. He's number 31 overall. Luther Burden III, finally here at number 32 overall. Malachi Starks, another guy who's usually in the top 10 to 15 of everyone's boards. He's at number 33 overall, not even the top safety in the NFL draft because Nick Emanwari is a top safety. Quinshon Judkins, the Ohio State running back, number 34. Mason Taylor, the LSU tight end, number 35. Travion Henderson, Ohio State running back at number 36. Carson Schwessinger, UCLA linebacker, number 37. Josh Conerly Jr., Oregon offensive tackle at number 38. Josh Farmer, the Florida State D tackle, number 39. And Jack Sawyer, the Ohio State edge, at number 40. Dalton, there's a couple surprises here. Luther Burden III all the way down there at number 32. And Malachi Starks, not the number one safety on Daniel Jeremiah's big board. I think it's the first time I've seen a big draft analyst not have Starks as the top safety.
Yeah, I think part of it speaks to Nick Emanwari and his frame at 6'3" and almost 230 and what that entire South Carolina defense did this year. And I think Starks just didn't have as flashy a year this year. And I think that speaks to the whole Georgia defense. They were kind of piecing some things together. They had a lot of young players, a lot of players I think that didn't quite live up. I mean, I know that we've got Jalen Walker and Mykel Williams earlier, but I've heard about Starks. Some scouts think he's a top 10 talent. When you read about some of the things they say about
Trevor
him.
has him number 7.
All right, how good Trevor has him 7. How good he's been for 3 years down there at Georgia. He's a really clean prospect, and maybe he doesn't have the frame of Emanwari, but if someone ever got him in this range, they'd be getting an absolute steal.
Yeah, he would, and I think 33 is lower than I personally would have him, but I also would agree with Daniel Jeremiah in a little bit that I don't think he's a top 10 talent in this draft. I think he's more like a top 20 player in this draft. I think there are little bit more issues with Starks' game than people kind of let on with him. I think, when you talk about a safety being a top 10 of a big board, I mean, you got to think about like a Kyle Hamilton or even like a next year, like a Caleb Downs type prospect.
Derwin James.
Like I don't think Malachi Starks is quite in that realm. He's still a phenomenal player. He's still going to be a first-round pick likely at safety, which is saying a lot considering how infrequently that safeties are taken in the first round of the draft. I still love Malachi Starks. There's nothing against him. I just don't think he's quite the top 5, top 10 pick that like a lot of people think he would have been coming into the year. I still think he's a first round caliber player, but not, like I said, not quite the Derwin James, Kyle Hamilton, or even Caleb Downs next year type of player.
I'm with you. I would likely have him somewhere in the teens,
yeah,
which is fine. I mean, if he went to the Dolphins at 13 or the Colts at 14 or I wouldn't argue one bit with either of those two teams taking him. So I would probably have him somewhere in the teens, and he's still a really good player. I am surprised because the general consensus has been Starks as the top safety in this draft.
So how about tight end 3, Mason Taylor at number 35 overall? I would say, Dalton, I mean, Elijah Roy was phenomenal, but I would say I think Mason Taylor was our highest graded tight end from Senior Bowl practices and game as well. So Mason Taylor had a great week at the Senior Bowl. He might be the early favorite for being tight end 3 in this draft.
Yeah, and I don't know that I would have him quite as high as 35 because I think there's still a lot of his route running that he needs to work on. There's big potential there, right? There are times you can see, on the line of scrimmage blocking, and I think he showed us better route running chops at the Senior Bowl than even he showed us during the season, which makes him shoot up the board, right? I think tight end after the first 2 is one of the hardest groups to rank. I know I did a lot of shuffling after the Senior Bowl with what I had going into it, and Taylor did wind up at number 3. I don't know that he would go this high at 35, and you mentioned Elijah Arroyo's another good player. Gunnar Helm is another player that a lot of people like. We still don't know. We kind of have the wild card with Harold Fannin, and he didn't show great at the Senior Bowl, but you had a lot of guys, even Terrence Ferguson, that played really well down there. But Taylor, I think, as the third guy, I would agree with right now from what we saw. And I think I'll tell you the other thing that sticks out to me. You look at 30 through 40 here. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Ohio State players. I mean, that just a loaded national title team. Obviously, there's a reason they won the whole thing. But I just look at so many guys from one team and so much talent. How about Donovan Jackson at 31? Look, getting a first round spot there, maybe. He's a guard.
It's high, but it's like I kind of like the respect of saying, hey, he was a massive part of them winning it all. For him having to go out to left tackle and playing as well as he did at left tackle against some top defensive lines in that playoff, he is a phenomenal offensive lineman.
I know Booker was way up here. Where is he at 14? He's way up here at 14. But I think Jackson, you could argue, is the best guard in this draft. And what he showed adjusting out to tackle, he won't play tackle in the NFL, but he was fantastic at guard. He went out to tackle and was serviceable. I would argue was as valuable as any piece of their team in that playoff run because of their offensive line being their biggest weakness. So Jackson's willingness to do that plays well, and I think you could even argue he's a top guard in this draft. But at 31, that's impressive stuff right there, especially when you consider him over some of the Ohio State teammates like the 2 backs and Jack Sawyer.
Yeah, Jack Sawyer I would have as a first-round player easily for me. I think he's probably going to be edge 3 for me in the draft. But how about Quinshon Judkins, number 34, and then Trayvon Henderson, the other running back, number 36 overall, just showing how loaded that backfield is.
It's reasonable. I mean, they're 2 very different type of backs, so it's I have them also right next to each other in my running back rankings, but they are very different when you talk about Quinshon being kind of just the quintessential, fundamentally sound running back with good vision and power, and Travion, someone's going to love him for the explosive speed, man. Holy hell, can he run? I mean, that's really, you get him any open space. I think the play that you really saw was the screen pass before halftime against Texas.
Oh, yeah.
He just absolutely, Travion can absolutely fly. So they're 2 different types of backs, and it depends what you're looking for, but both really good players, and I think they are going to be early to mid-second round picks.
I have Quinshon Judkins, number RB5 for me, and Henderson's RB6 for me.
I think I have the same. I want to say I have the same as that. I can't think of it off the top of my head. Yeah, same. 5 and 6. Judkins, Henderson.
Wow. Yep. Get original, Dalton. Jesus.
It's just sometimes we think the same way.
How about Josh Farmer, 39 overall? That's higher than I've seen anyone have him as well.
That's.
I got to dive in a little more on him.
For sure. We certainly didn't watch a ton of Florida State during the season for good reason. But no, I mean, there's always been a lot of talent on that Florida State defense, right? Last year we saw this past year a ton of good rookies, right? Jared Verse, Braden Fish, Jerryon Jones, Renardo Green. I mean, clearly what they're building down there at Florida State and collecting all the talent that they do on defense. Patrick Payton didn't come out in this draft, transferring to LSU instead. We'll talk about him next year. But no, this is someone I think to dig in further on, and he had a good showing at the Senior Bowl as well.
He did. All right, so we have a very polarizing player at number 41 overall that we're going to break down in just a second. But we've got to talk about the final sponsor of our show. That is Cherry Bundy, the performance drink fueling the Health-Lete revolution. Natural products and ingredients with no added sugar. Tart cherries are the highest antioxidant fruit or vegetable in the world. It's a natural anti-inflammatory with incredible benefits like reduced soreness, increased recovery, and it contains naturally occurring melatonin to help improve your sleep. It helps support your immunity as well, used by nearly 500 collegiate and professional sports teams. Every NFL team uses Cherry Bundy. 10 of the last 11 Super Bowl champions, and in a couple days, it'll be 11 of the last 12 because the Chiefs and the Eagles both use Cherry Bundy as well. Every team playing in Europe or Brazil this year has had Cherry Bundy with them, all but one Power 4 football team. Every college football and basketball national champion since 2007 has used Cherry Bundy as well. Our products are available, or their products are available on Amazon, cherrybundy.com, and at retailers nationwide, including Publix and Kroger. And for 20% off all orders, use code PFF20 at cherrybundy.com. Again, PFF20 for 20% off at cherrybundy.com. All right. 41 through 50, as promised. Very polarizing player. We'll talk about in just a second. Jackson Dart, the quarterback from Ole Miss. He's number 41 overall. Number 42, TJ Sanders, defensive tackle from South Carolina. 43, Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State corner. 44, another corner, Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky. Another corner, 45, and Ben Morrison from Notre Dame. Edge rusher Josiah Stewart, number 46, the edge from Michigan. Number 47, Marcus Bowe from Purdue, the offensive tackle. Number 48, Gray Zabel, who had an excellent Senior Bowl, the interior offensive lineman from North Dakota State. Number 49, Elijah Arroyo, also excellent Senior Bowl, the tight end from Miami. And number 50, Alfred Collins, the defensive tackle from Texas. So, as promised, Dalton, we got to talk about Jackson Dart. I've seen a lot of stuff saying he's a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Some people saying he's a day 3 pick in the NFL draft. Where do you land on the whole Jackson Dart discourse?
I am going to land in the place where I've been at with this whole class for a while. There's two guys in Shedeur and Cam who are really good, and there's a whole bunch of other guys that either need a whole lot of work or they're backups, and I think Dart's one of them. I think coming from that offense, it was so dependent on go balls and deep balls from Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. I recently saw that there's 7 quarterbacks in the top 70 on the consensus board. I don't know that I'd have any more than the first 2.
Yeah,
honestly, and I right now I think I have Will Howard ahead of Jackson Dart in my quarterback rankings. I mean, and honestly, I don't think even that would be a top 70 to 75 pick. I think there's a huge drop off. Obviously, there's hype and everything that goes into wanting some of these quarterbacks to be better and wanted to be like last year where we had 6 guys go in the first 12 picks, but I just don't think that's the reality with this class. I think you have Shedeur and Cam, and if you don't get one of those 2 guys, I think you're really fishing. I don't think there's a quarterback I would take, a third quarterback I would take in the first round, or even one I would take in the second round.
I personally have Jackson Dart QB3 as well. But I'm with you. I'm not taking any of them in the second or third round, probably. Maybe third round.
When I see 7 of them in the top 70 of the consensus, I don't know where, because I don't see them as ready-made starters right now. I think even Dart, when it just comes to mentally adjusting to an NFL offense and certain throws underneath, because it showed at Ole Miss. You take away the go balls. Wasn't a whole lot left.
It's a lot of one read in the offense.
And I never really saw him step up against like a really good defense. When you talk about the same theme for Ole Miss of they couldn't beat Georgia, they did this year, but it was really conservative. And actually, Austin Simmons put together the best drive. Struggling with Alabama, I don't see where this is suddenly coming from, like, because he tore up Duke in the bowl game, but I go, okay. Yeah. Like a Duke team with 0 offense and really no chance to win that game. I don't know where it's coming from. I wouldn't have another quarterback outside of the first 2 in at least in the top 50, if not the top 75.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Again, I have Dart QB3. I think there is stuff to work with there, but I just think he's a ball of clay in a lot of ways. You just got to mold him into a quarterback. Like, he's not ready made to be a starter next year. Like, he's got a lot to learn to be an NFL quarterback.
If I'm comparing him, because I was a big fan of this guy back in the day, if I'm comparing him in the pre-draft process to a guy who shot up, say, like a Zach Wilson, I liked Wilson better than I like Dart right now. I thought he had a better arm. I thought he was at least equally as good an athlete, and made – it was easy because Wilson had fantastic pass protection, so everything was easy for him at BYU, and that was before they were even in the Power Four. But I'm not really getting where all of the sudden we're getting this big Jackson Dart rise up when even at the Senior Bowl I thought he was just decent.
That Ole Miss offense just kind of scares me a little bit with a lot of guys in the offense. Like Trey Harris, another guy that scares me a little bit. I know he's uber productive in that offense. He actually broke the PFF record for yards per route run this past year, but again, it's a lot of one-read stuff in that Ole Miss offense, and it's a lot of hand-holding, I think, for the quarterback in that offense as well. I like Jackson Dart a lot. He's still QB3 for me, but I much rather take him in the third round rather than a top 50 selection on Jackson Dart. A lot of corners in this 41 through 50 as well, Dalton, and I think the one that stands out to me, Ben Morrison at 45 overall. I think it's a top 20 player in the draft. DJ might be putting in the hip injury. That might be why he's number 45 overall. And I would if the hip injury comes back and says, yeah, this might be a problem for him long term, then yeah, I might actually take him somewhere around 45 overall because he still is an uber talented player. But if it comes back clean, I think he's a top 20 player in this draft, honestly.
I think this is the scenario where he falls similar to this other player. I think his skill set is a lot like Kamari Lassiter out of Georgia last year, taken by the Houston Texans, that had a fantastic rookie year. Smooth cover corner, man. I mean, especially with as much man coverage as Notre Dame played this year. Had to get a little more physical, got to work on the tackling a little bit. That sounds like Lassiter as well. I just think as a pure cover corner, I would have him third behind Travis Hunter and Will Johnson here. And, a name, we see Thomas here, we see Harrison here. A name that we don't see in this top 50 is Siobhan Revell from East Carolina. So I think an interesting shuffle.
Another injury guy, yeah.
Another injury guy with the ACL. An interesting shuffle on these. Look, they're all really talented. Some of them have better scheme fits than others, but interesting to have Morrison this low, because if he were to fall this low in the draft, in the actual draft, I should say, into a day 2 pick, somebody I think would be getting a steal as long as he's healthy.
I know we've been talking about a lot of the disagreements we've had with Darren Jeremiah on this big board, but obviously that's the easiest thing to talk about when you are breaking down a big board. I want to shout him out, though, for a couple guys here, because I think this did come out before Senior Bowl practices. Gray Zabel and Elijah Arroyo, two guys who were dominant at the Senior Bowl, and two guys that, for some people, were under the radar prospects. He had both of them in his top 50, and both of them, I don't know about Arroyo being cemented as a top 50 pick, but at least Zabel was. They both were incredible at the Senior Bowl and both made themselves a lot of money. So Daniel Jeremiah looks pretty smart for having both of them in his top 50.
I'll throw a third guy in there who we have yet to see this high in any projections. Is Josiah Stewart from Michigan, who had a spectacular
season. Got a PFF subscription, obviously. Daniel Jeremiah's got a PFF. He's got ultimate,
Stewart, obviously. I think, was either second or third highest graded edge defender in the country this year. He was just spectacular all year, and obviously he had some good situations playing alongside Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant on the inside there, but he was terrific as a pass rusher this year. Might be a little too undersized to actually go in the top 50, but you talk about, at the very least, a situational pass rusher that teams are going to love as a potential day 2 pick. I think Josiah Stewart is a good call out, and a guy who was going to be at the Senior Bowl and then opted out. I got to love Alfred Collins at 50, man. I absolutely love that guy. I think you talk about a versatile player who can play from any alignment up front, and an elite run defender. No question, if you want to improve your run defense, you take Alfred Collins somewhere in the mid to late second round. Absolutely, and he's a player, again, I just love the way he can play from so many different alignments, anywhere from either of the tackles inside to the center at the nose. Again, we've talked about he played the third fiddle behind Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy in 2023. Came out as a star this year, one of the best run defenders in the class. I really love that he's included here at 50 also.
Love that as well. Azareye'h Thomas is one of my guys in this draft. He was at the Senior Bowl, had up and down week, but also every corner is going to have an up down week at the Senior Bowl. Just that's the nature of the position, honestly. Tall, long, very fluid guy. I think in a press man's game, he's a awesome fit. I would absolutely take him in the top 50 of an NFL draft if you run a lot of press man coverage as well. But let's break it down. Daniel Jeremiah's top 50 prospects in the 2025 NFL draft. Of course, you can check it out at NFL.com. You're going to see the full list and all of his explanations for all 50 of those prospects. But for Dalton Wasserman, for our producers back there, and Eli and Quinn, I'm Max Chadwick, and we'll see you guys very soon.